Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm MrTieDye, and today I'm here to do another video on tie-dyeing socks. This was something I meant to get around to back in 2020 when I did my other sock video, and one thing and another, I just never got around to it. But today we're going to do that because me being me, I decided that I was not going to let anything stop me, so I made my own round to it. So anyways, the freedom I feel with being able to get on with life and get some things done. This one here is what I call, sorry for all that confusion, I was trying to be creative and anyways, this is what I call the candy cane spiral. And it started when I first off was wanting to dye a pair of rainbow socks. And I wanted to have the rainbow go all the way around, but laying the sock out flat, pleating it up like this here, and then dyeing it, you just get rainbow lines and they're just repeated on both sides. I wanted one continuous rainbow around it, and I decided I needed to have it 3D. And today I'm using some dye bottles, but back then I had just the perfect size little glasses that were probably just about this size, maybe about this tall here, and they were just perfect. I wrapped them with some wax paper, and that helped everything come off smoothly. But one thing or another, I'm going to do it another way. This is what I happen to have on hand. I made sure to rinse this bottle really well, that there was no excess dye on it, and I also filled it with water, so it has a little bit of weight. It just makes it easier to work with. Otherwise, I just felt like when I was working with an empty bottle, I kept tipping it over and dropping it. So the way that I do it is I take a sock that's been, a pair of socks, they've been washed and then soaked in soda ash and spun out so they're just barely damp right now. And to start with, to get just the rainbow stripes, what I did was I just stretched the sock over top of the bottle here. And I just put it on and just lined it straight up and just scrunched it on there. Main thing, since I have this cap, it wants to keep catching there, just keep that up. But if you do have a nice set of little glasses, those will work just perfect, and you'll have just a flat top up there then to work with. Anyways, so in scrunching that on, you can kind of adjust your little pleats here, just make sure everything is nice and even there. And I just scrunched it straight on there, and then if you just dye lines on there, and we'll get to that later, when you take it off, then you have rainbow stripes that go all the way around the sock here. So then in making these rainbow socks, then I decided, what happens if you give it a little bit of a twist? So that's what I'm going to do next. So both of these here will give me just straight rainbow lines, but they will be all the way around the sock. So I got a couple more bottles here, another pair of socks, and this time I'm going to put it on, but instead of scrunching it straight down, I'm going to twist it as I go. So get it started on there, and then I kind of give a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is straighten out the top of the sock right here and hold that, and then I'm going to just twist the sock, and you can kind of see all the twists in there, and then scrunch it down. Make sure keep this top loose. So I keep adding a little bit more, twist that up, and then just scrunch it down so it pleats up. So if you just hold your hand right there, you can just pleat it and push it right against your hand, and just keep twisting it and pushing it down until you get the whole sock on there. If you need to, you can scoot down a little bit further there to give yourself more room. Okay. So once again, you can go in like the heel here. It kind of sticks up a little bit, so I might scrunch the sock, open that up a little bit just to kind of tuck that in a little tighter. Any of these bigger pleats, you can kind of scrunch them out. The main thing is just twisting it. And this one I am twisting clockwise around the sock, because when I do the other one, I'm going to go counterclockwise. That way you don't have two socks that spin the same direction. They're going to spin the opposite direction. But you can do it however you like. This is just how I like to do it. So I get the sock put on there, and then this time I'm going to spin it the other direction. So it's just the same process, but going the other direction. Like I say, this is a design that I had come up with when I was working at the Salem Saturday Market. That would have been 20 years ago, 15 or 20 years. I was there for 7 years, I think, starting in 2005. And I loved dyeing socks, and that was way back in the day. I had a store that was called Indigo Child, and we did tie-dye out of there, and then eventually we had to close the store. But I kept doing tie-dye, and I wanted to make a go at another business with it. And at the time, I was dyeing a lot of socks. So the first business name that I was going with was Walking on Rainbows. But eventually I changed it. Well, I didn't change it. I received the name MrTieDye when I was doing a school event. And none of the kids could pronounce my last name, Mr. McClellan. So everybody called me MrTieDye. So anyways, I received my name and I liked that name. So I stuck with MrTieDye, and Walking on Rainbows got over onto my Etsy store when I started doing a lot of shoes. I don't do those anymore, but anyways, so now I have 2 socks on my pallets here, and I'm going to get a glove on and break out the dyes, and we'll get set up here and I'll show you how I dye these, so stay tuned. Okay, we're back with a glove and my dyes. I have 9 colors of the rainbow out here. I have fire red, fuchsia, deep orange, lemon yellow, bright green that I mix up myself. I just mix 3 parts lemon yellow and 1 part turquoise to get my bright green. And you can change that ratio to make it either brighter or darker. Emerald green, turquoise, bluebird, and plum. So there's my rainbow choices. You can pick however many colors you like. I like to have a couple extra colors in, so like I have an extra green, an extra blue, and an extra red in here. That just helps, especially on this one here, because as I'm going to dye this, I'm going to lay my lines down, but they're going to spread a little bit. And sometimes it can be difficult to judge just how much space you have. So as I'm going down the line here, if it looks like I am running out of room, I can leave out one of my extra blues or my extra greens if I need to, or the extra red. But otherwise, I think just with the practice ones that I've done here, all 9 colors should fit on here nicely. So I'm not going to dye both of these. Like I say, these are the twisted ones, and I'm going to dye them just in a straight line, just down the thing. And these ones here are just the rainbow stripes. I'll dye those later, but it's going to be just dyed the same way. So there's no sense in showing you me doing the same thing 4 times in a row. So I'm going to dye this one and then put it on super speed, and I'll dye the other one there. So to start with, I'm going to work. One of the things I like to have is just a little bit of a space at the bottom to hold the bottle. So make sure your sock is scooted up high enough that you can hold that, because once you get more colors on here, then you're going to have to hold the bottle. And if you can hold it from the bottom so that you're not getting dye on your hands, otherwise you'll want to make sure that you wipe your hand down really good or rinse it in between each color. Otherwise you're going to get a lot of dye transfer. So anyways, let's go for this. So in these thicker parts of the shirt, in the thicker parts of the sock where I have all the pleats, I usually will kind of tap my bottle down in there a little bit just to make sure that the dye is penetrating. I don't want to put on too much excess dye because then it will start running down the bottle here. So I try to get enough dye in there and get it down into the creases with the tapping motion. Once you get up to the top part here, then you don't need to tap it because you're only going through just one layer of fabric. And you can even lift these little creases up if you need to and poke a little bit more dye down in there. Once I get my line up, then I kind of just draw this up. If you have a glass, then this here will be flatter down here. You won't have quite as much that's not twisted here. So I just didn't happen to have a glass, but if you have one of those, then you'll be a little bit flatter and you can just kind of dye right up to the point there on each of the colors there. So then I just slowly work my way around the sock here, adding the next new color. Usually what I'll do, I can kind of see the white fibers sticking up here, and that's kind of an indication that more dye needs to go in there. So since I'm using rainbow colors, I can kind of overlap just a little bit. So that helps me with my saturation by going right down that line of red with the fuchsia. And just a little extra right in there. So, and I'm just going to keep working my way around here. So I'm going to go into super speed. If I think of anything more that I need to add to it, I'll slow down and explain that. But otherwise, you're just going to see me doing the super speed here. Oh, the other thing, up here on the point where all the colors come up to, you want to make sure that you have like your primary colors that are mostly touching up there. So like my orange, I didn't run it all the way up to the point. I left it down here a little bit, and I have my red and yellow up around it because like the orange is not going to mix well with the green if I get green up there into the point. So I try to keep the point clear, which is the toe of the sock, by only putting the primary colors all the way up there. Okay, so I got that all dyed now. Like I say, the colors are going all the way around. I can still see some of the white fuzzies sticking up, and on socks, I don't like to oversaturate these, especially something like this here, because I'm going to have to batch this standing up like that. So I'm not going to lay it down, because then the colors from the other colors will seep around to the back side. This way, at least if I have any colors run off, it's going to go down. So I'll put some rags down under this and then cover this up with, probably a piece of plastic, or I'll turn one of my tubs upside down over top of all of the socks just to keep them damp while I batch them. So anyways, I'm going to dye this other one real quick, and then shortly after that you guys will see the results of this. Oh, wait a minute, there'll be one more bonus. After I get done dyeing this, I'm going to do a bonus tie on a candy cane spiral on a t-shirt. So hang out, stay tuned. Okay, there they are. And I can see, like I say, that there's already dye running down this bottle here. So that's just something that you want to be aware of, that you don't want to batch these laying down, or the dye will kind of saturate and puddle all in one place. Also, you don't want to put these in a place where the dye is going to spill off if it puddles up and spill off onto the floor. So like I say, I'm going to set up a series of rags that I will set these on, cover them with plastic just to make sure that my mess stays contained here. But okay, one more thing. After I got done dyeing these, I had already put my camera away, and when I was setting them up to batch, I realized that they were still wanting to drip a little bit of dye. So what I did, I'm showing you after the fact, but I took each one of the dye bottles and I got out a clean dry towel and I just laid both of them onto the towel and just carefully wrapped it up and then squeezed that just to take a little bit of the excess dye out. And then I made sure that for the next one I didn't reuse that. I laid the next one down here, and I did 2 of them at a time. I laid them side by side here. But then you just pick that up and just carefully lay it on there and roll it and squeeze it. And then you can stand these up and batch them. Like I say, I stacked them all close and put a tub over top, but you could also just cover them up with plastic to help keep them damp. But that little bit of rolling will help take out the excess dye so that you don't end up with lots of dye puddles that you're trying to deal with. So anyways, we're getting ready to do the washout and reveal here, so stay tuned. Okay, so stay tuned for the reveal of these, and then after the reveal, make sure you stay here because I'm going to do a if I could even talk, I'm going to do a t-shirt candy cane spiral. Not quite the same as these ones here, but it'll kind of be similar. So anyways, I'll be back with the reveal of these, and then after that, the t-shirt. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So this here is how I do the rinsing on these socks after they have batched for the 24 to 48 hours. I did 48 on mine, but I just start by putting cold water down over top of them, and since all my lines are going straight down, then the dye that leaks out is going straight down the bottle. So that's why I like doing the twisting action on the bottle, and that way I can dye in straight lines rather than if I put them on straight and then try to dye zigzag then when I do the washing. Anyways, you can do it kind of however you want. This is just what works best for me. So I pick these up and just kind of squeeze them under the water here to get some of that more excess out. Okay, so the socks have batched for 48 hours or so, and now it's time to rinse them out. So I've given them a good rinse. I just kind of poured water over top of them and just kept squeezing the bottle here. And now I'm going to take these off. So this was the pair that I just scrunched straight onto the bottle so that I would just have rainbow lines. So let's just pull that right off of there. And now we have rainbow lines all the way around the sock there. So there's the other one. So that's if you just scrunch it straight on and then put your lines straight down. So you could play with this. Like I say, I did the other ones here. Let me just a second. Okay, so these are the ones that I twisted on there. So these are going to come off in a spiral fashion around the bottle, and then it's going to give you spirally legs, the rainbow going all the way around. So let's spiral another one off of here. So takes a little bit longer, it's a little bit more of a process. You have to be careful with just how much dye you put on there and soak up the excess dye, but when you get done you get these fantastic candy cane spiraled socks. So let's get these rinsed into the washer, and I'll be back with the t-shirt here soon. So peace. Okay, I'm back. So how were those socks? I haven't seen them yet because I'm still in the past. You guys are in the future. But anyways, here's the t-shirt that I'm going to do the candy cane spiral on. It's not like I can get a giant glass or tube or whatever and spiral this in the same way. So what I have done with a t-shirt is I just open it up and lay the collar open on the top and spread the base of the t-shirt out, the hem, all the way around it here. So I just kind of make sure that's all out here. This was another one that in 2023 I did a discharge of a t-shirt that I did a candy cane spiral on. And that one I opened up the collar more, but this one here I'm just going to do just the spiral. But that, once again, after I had done that reveal, I did plan on making a candy cane spiral t-shirt and never got around to it. But no more excuses, I have around to it. So if you want yours, you can go to my website, MrTieDye.com, and look for around to it and get some of those old things done that you've been wanting to do. Anyways, so what I do is, to start with, I grab this collar here and I just kind of bunch the whole thing up right in the middle, and then that's where I'm going to start twisting from. This also works great for dresses and for skirts, because then you can get that spiral that just wraps around. And of course the t-shirt you get some of that, but with the dress or a skirt you can see even more of the spiral as it wraps around. So once you have this whole collar pinched up here in the middle, then you're just going to start twisting. And of course, to start with, you have shoulders and sleeves here, so you just have to kind of make the best of it. Just kind of tuck them in however you can and make them lay flat. So I just keep working around here and twisting that middle. So like here's one of the sleeves right here, so I'm going to kind of fold it in and just lay it right next to it. Here's the other sleeve. So I'm just kind of tucking these things in, and I keep trying to spread out this hem here. This here is the very bottom of the t-shirt. I try to keep that kind of spread out here so that I can see where I'm working in the middle of. And then I take that sleeve and I just work it in and just kind of pleat it in there. You have to just kind of work the fabric. So just scoot it around however you need to get that sleeve to lay in there flat like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to work around here. So that sleeve, like I say, you can see part of the sleeve right there. I'm going to take this other one and do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of flatten that space out right next to where I'm twisting, and then lay that sleeve down in there and just kind of wiggle the fabric around until I can get that sleeve to lay flat in there. And if it's not flat, it's okay. You can just do it however you need to. Once you get the two sleeves done, then I'm just spreading my hand out so I can hold more of it. So I'm holding actually the center, which is the collar, and the sleeves here. And now I'm going to slowly twist the shirt, and I keep pulling this out. What I'm doing, this here is just the body of the t-shirt here. I'm pulling it out and creating these pleats that I can then lay right next to the sleeves as I'm twisting it around here. So you just got to keep working it as you go around. I just keep twisting, and I'm just keep pulling, and as I pull right here, it creates these pleats. So that's what I'm doing, is just slowly pleating that up. And as you get out to this outer edge here, then everything is laying down flat. Okay. Now, what I did for the discharge tee, and like I say, you have that option here, is I opened up this center spot the collar, and I just spread that open and made it into like a little donut here. And then I started with my kite string to just kind of hold it in place, and I passed it, and it takes a little bit of time of weaving the thing under there. And I slowly squeezed this down. Once I had it, you know, to a workable size, then I broke out my sinew and I wrapped it through and pulled just to kind of create some lines down in there. But this being a white shirt, I'm just going to dye it. I'm just going to leave that center part all closed up there. So hopefully when I start dyeing then, oh, let me tuck that tag down out of my way. When I start dyeing, then I'm just looking for the collar being my center spot. So each time I put colors on, I'm making sure that I'm touching that collar there and bringing that out. Other than that, let's just get this tied up. But when you're doing a skirt or a dress, then of course you have more fabric. It might not work on a really narrow dress just because of this twisting process, but you won't know really until you try it. But it looks really cool on a skirt. I used to do a bunch of these back in the day when I was at the Salem Saturday Market. So there's my candy cane spiral. So now we're going to get this dyed up. So let me get some gloves. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back to dye this. I'm going to dye it in the same 9 colors of the rainbow here. So I'm just doing basic dyeing, just getting the dye down in there, and then we're going to wash it out. So going into super speed. There's the candy cane t-shirt spiral. So if I had a dress blank or a skirt blank handy, I would do one of those too, but I'm sure somebody will try that soon, or I will get one done up as soon as I find my blanks. Anyways, I will get this batch for a couple days. I'll wash it out, and then you'll see the results here in about 2 seconds. Peace, love, light, and laughter. Have a good day. Okay, so here's the t-shirt that I did the candy cane spiral on. So let's get it opened up. So like I say, this outer edge here is what's all spiraled around here, right around the center of the collar of the shirt. So let me set up and I'll open that up so you can see it. Alright, here we go. I'm going to grab the collar. That's where we started at here. And then those stripes go all the way around. Like I say, it's not quite as noticeable. It looks like the stripes going across, but when you look at the whole thing, you can see they go around. But when you have a dress or a skirt, that looks really cool. And as you can see behind me, I dyed some more things, so I'm going to show you various other ways that I dyed things. So here's one that I did more solid with a little bit of stripes. And here's pink and orange. So I'm going to open those up next as a little bonus here. So stay tuned. Peace, love, light, and laughter. Okay, on this one I did the twisting thing, but then I dyed it by just alternating 2 different colors. So it really gives you that nice candy cane stripes there. So that's one thing. Another thing that you can do, I mean, I twisted this all the way, but if you twisted it and kind of zigzag back and forth with it, just a little bit at a time, then you could have even zigzaggy curly stripes around the socks. So let's see here. Okay, so here's another pair. This one here, I dyed them all turquoise, and then I took dark blue dye, Bluebird. I didn't have any thickened dye, that would give more distinct lines, but I just took a little bit of that and brushed it on. So let's see what we get here. So yeah, I can see some stripy pattern. Once it's all washed and dry, you should be able to see this a little bit better in there. But that just gives another little bit of a pattern. These were twisted onto the bottle, and then, like I say, if you want an even more defined line, use thickened dye. Anyways, let's get these into the washer. Okay, here's another pair that I did the same way. I dyed these all in fuchsia, and then I brushed turquoise. Once again, it was just regular turquoise to make purple over them, so I think more of the patterning will show up once it's washed here, but that just gives another fun effect on these twisted candy cane socks. So put those in the washer.